So the first question, what are the basic steps to build a hate crime database? Now, there are many challenges to studying hate crime. These challenges include definitional issues as well as access to data. There are certainly important studies that have been published on hate crimes, but the ability to use cutting-edge statistical techniques and rigorous designs is limited because of these and other challenges. Now, one potential solution to some of the research limitations is the building of an open source database where all data are collected exclusively from publicly available information, drawing especially on court documents that may be available, police documents, as well as media accounts. Open source data is information that is available and obviously open to the public, and it often comes in the shape of searchable electronic documents. Now, the use of open source methods has increased dramatically in the last 10 years, and the number of peer-reviewed articles using such methodologies has increased dramatically. Newly created open source databases, for instance, are currently being used to study hard-to-reach criminal activities from school shootings, officer-involved shootings, mass shootings, as well as terrorism. My colleague and I, Josh Freilich, have been involved in 3 major data collection efforts over the last 15 years, we're in the process of creating 3 such open source databases. Number 1, we've created the Extremist Crime Database, which is a database that includes all extremist criminal activity in the United States since 1990. Both violent crimes are included as well as nonviolent crimes. We also include information about crimes that weren't completed, plots or failed plots. Second database is the School Shooting Database. Again, this is a database that includes every school shooting that has occurred in the United States since 1990. This involves only crimes happening on school grounds involving a firearm where there was at least 1 injury. And then the third database that we just received funding to create is a cyber-terrorism database. It will mimic what we did with the Extremist Crime Database in terms of collecting information about crimes motivated by ideological extremism, but using computer as a mode of attack. So I want to focus now on some of the basic steps in creating a open source database. And there are 7 steps. 1, you have to think through the exclusion criteria. 2, you have to identify incidents to include in the database. Number 3, you have to develop search protocols as well as collect the open source documents. Number 4, you have to address issues of reliability as well as other measurement issues. Number 5, you have to think about data coding. Number 6, you have to clean the data. And then obviously number 7, you have to perform quantitative and qualitative analysis with the data. So I want to talk just a little bit about each of those steps. And first, with inclusion criteria, now this is a challenge for any database project and will be critical in developing a hate crimes database. That is, what cases should be included and which cases should be excluded, and what rules will be used to guide the decision making about the inclusion criteria. What we recommend here is really to develop sort of a decision tree for each case. For example, the School Shooting Database includes only events that have occurred since 1990 that involved a gun, used a firearm, where at least 1 injury and it had to occur on school grounds. So what we've done is create essentially a decision tree where each of our searchers have to ask themselves a question. Did it occur in the United States? Did it occur in the United States after 1990? Was there a criminal justice response? Was a gun fired? Did the crime occur on school grounds? Did the shooting cause an injury? And if obviously yes is for all of those questions, that particular incident will be included in the database. This is one of the really important things because of the challenging, applying a consistent criteria so that all the incidents that meet the inclusion criteria are included in the database. For example, one of the most challenging parts of the school shooting database is deciding whether or not an event occurred on school grounds. In some schools it was clear, obviously, if an event occurs within a school, that's going to be a school shooting. If it occurs in a parking lot outside of school, it's also pretty clear. However, oftentimes in urban schools or many other types of schools, knowing the boundaries of where the community starts and where the school stops was pretty difficult. Oftentimes too, shootings occur at athletic events that may be adjacent to the school or nearby the school. And so we had to sort of, on a case-by-case basis, determine whether or not a particular case should be included in the database. The second step is really an important step in terms of identifying the incidents. So what we have done is to identify incidents is review sources to identify relevant cases. And so among the sources that we think are particularly important are scholarly databases that already exist and may be open to look for particular events, look at official statistics or from official organizations and government organizations, look at media and media reports, watch group databases or watch group reports, and then obviously doing just more general searches to identify particular incidents. It seems relatively simple, but it's a lot involved in terms of looking through these sources and systematically identifying particular sources. For the Extremist Crime Database, for example, in order to identify extremist crimes occurring in the United States, our team reviewed over 100 different sources just that had elements of lists of potential incidents to include. We then did general searches to enhance that and to continue to grow the database. The third basic step in putting together a database is developing search protocols and collecting open source documents. Essentially what you try to do is collect all publicly available information on each incident that you were able to identify, right? This is a challenge, and there is some variation across databases in terms of what is meant by collecting all publicly available information. For example, some open source databases use only a small number of sources, but our approach has always been to find every particular open source document about a particular case and collect that information. All right. In order to do it well, we feel that it requires extensive training. So we train our research assistants and others involved in our project on our basic search protocols in terms of what every case has to, in terms of the criteria that has to be followed for every particular case. Looking at the documents, every one of those case files that includes all those documents are reviewed by a more senior staff member, and then each of those searches are redone by another searcher to make sure we didn't miss any particular documents or any particular files. We always think about it as thinking like a detective or thinking about an investigator, is that the goal is to find as many documents as possible about a particular event. So oftentimes you find a series of events that has information about the incident that will open up a whole new avenue in terms of developing additional search opportunities to find more about a particular case. The fourth issue that I want to talk about are measurement issues, including selectivity and the importance of reliability and search reliability. These are challenges. When you're talking about open sources, just like any other database, you have particular challenges, right, in terms of what you find. And so one of the issues will be you'll have variations by case in terms of the number of source documents that are available. High profile cases involving that get incredible amounts of media attention, for example, will have a large case file of all the documents about that case. It will be covered extensively in the media. Court documents may be available, whereas opposed to another case that doesn't get as much publicity, it'll be harder to find documents. And so you're going to have to come up with some criteria to sort of manage variations in the number of documents as well as the type of documents that you have. Another step is coding the information that's available in that search document. So you can imagine, just to sort of summarize, you have an incident, you go out and develop a search protocol to collect every document about that incident, and then you have this case file of all these publicly available documents about that particular incident. Well, then the question is, what do you do about it? And so you essentially, like other research projects, you create a code book that includes the constructs that you're interested in collecting. You know, for example, our Extremist Crime Database, we have a code book that captures characteristics of the incident. We have a code book that captures characteristics of the offender or the perpetrator. We have a code book on the victim or the target of a particular extremist activity. And across all of those, we have a series of variables that we try to identify within the search documents. As you can imagine, again, you look through the search document, you use that information to code the particular variables, and then one of the things we add on to that, or what we do, or we ask our coders to do, is do a targeted search. If there's information that is missing, that shouldn't be missing, we ask them to go back and perform additional search to collect additional material that may be able to fill in some of those missing variables. So the sixth step in the process is cleaning the data, making sure that the information that is included in the database is ready to use, make sure that it's reliable and valid and can be used in a study. And then the final step in this process is doing quantitative and qualitative analysis with the data.